You know, for a series that likes to brag to infinity and beyond, this really should have been to one boring-ass planet and nowhere else.
You see the hat? We're being pursued by just a massive robot.
Chris Evans battles the evil Emperor Zurg. Kinda. Okay, no spoilers, but man, some of you are gonna be disappointed in Lightyear. A movie that's like a video game that I bet would be a lot of fun to play, but is pretty boring to watch. I think there's gonna be a fair amount of people that enjoy a good chunk of this movie, especially if you saw the trailer to this and thought, this looks like fun. I'll be honest, I saw the trailer and I wasn't really that blown away. Part of the reason is that, this is gonna be kind of an odd reason, I saw the Buzz Lightyear cartoon, and yes, that is a show for kids. It's got a few jokes for adults and everything, but it's mainly for kids. But I have to be honest, when I think of Buzz Lightyear, when I saw Toy Story, that's kind of what I thought the adventures of Buzz Lightyear would be like. It's a space ranger, he fights off aliens and robots, he's got a team of weird aliens and robots that fight alongside with him. He defeats the evil Emperor Zurg. There's a lot of good one-liners and memorable characters, and it's overall a good time. It's very silly, it's got a lot of cliches, but that's kind of what I'm looking for in a Buzz Lightyear project.
Condition status.
Not good.
Excellent, let's roll.
So we have this film that states at the very opening that this is Andy from Toy Story's favorite movie from 1995. Like, this was the film that the toy is based around, and that is a lie, man. The TV show is what this toy would be based on. When you see what they do in this movie and you watch Toy Story, and you don't even have to watch the Buzz Lightyear cartoon, if you watch Toy Story, there are so many things that do not add up. The tone is different, what they do in the movie is different. There's so many things where if you watch Toy Story 2, especially with Zurg, and you say that Zurg is the Zurg from this movie, again, I won't go into spoilers, I'll get to that.
That was utterly terrifying, and I regret having joined you.
Well, I got my Rotten Tomatoes quote. With that said, I think this is a film where it's a little bit more, like a better way of putting it, down to Earth, even though Earth is never in this, but they are stranded on a different planet, and the planet, like I said, is a very boring planet. You know, the only alien life you have there is these vines, and maybe some bugs, and that's about it. There's nothing really that inventive, where the cartoon very much just embraced exploring a whole new universe. This, ironically, does not explore exploring much. You're just stuck on this one planet. Even when they go into space, they just circle around the planet. That's it. There's really not much of being a space ranger in this.
To infinity?
And beyond.
But not to beyond. One planet. They are on one planet, man. But let's say that's your thing. Let's say that's what you're looking for. You saw the trailer and you like something that looked a little bit more kind of gritty and pulls back. You're not going to see as many goofy aliens and stuff. Fair enough. For the first 2/3 of this movie, I think it is meeting that standard. It's not excelling at it. It's not going beyond it. Again, you're not going to infinity and beyond, but it's meeting that standard. And I think a fair amount of people will enjoy it fine. I'll be honest, I was watching this, not getting into it, but I'm like, okay, anyone that saw the trailer, they're gonna get what they're looking for watching this movie. Where it really starts to fall apart, for me anyway, and I get the feeling for a fair amount of people, at the very least it's gonna be divisive, is the last third, and in particular, what they do with Zurg. And I, again, will not give it away, but he is not an evil emperor, as in evil Emperor Zurg. Their treatment of Zurg can be summed up best by Buzz Lightyear himself in this clip.
Gone! It's all gone. All of it's gone. Bye-bye. Woo, see ya.
They do something that just throws a total twist in there, and on the one hand, I don't think that's Buzz Lightyear. I don't think that's Emperor Zurg. That's not what I'm looking for. But on the other hand, I will admit, it is the only part of the movie where I kind of woke up. Because everything else was very much doing the status quo. Just the very generic space exploring this boring-ass planet. Figuring out little puzzles again like a game. At the very least, what they do with Zurg is different. It's a risk. And it does tie into much more what these Pixar plots kind of have, where they introduce ideas and ethical dilemmas. But it is really rushed. It's ironic that this film kind of deals with time travel. One of the things that happen is Buzz goes into space, and every time he returns, it's 4 years later. It's so funny because this film does not handle time well. This is not a very well-paced film. In the opening, you see him crash land on this planet, and they say, well, we gotta figure out a way out of this. They make it look like a few days pass, but it's a year, an entire year passes. It doesn't feel that way. You don't really see him making these interactions with many people.
Buzz Lightyear mission log after a full year of being marooned.
And by a whole year, I mean like that 4 years later text from Castaway. Like, I feel like most of this movie is that poorly done caption. I'm not really getting into his mission because the mission is to get everybody home, and they hammer that in. He wants to get everybody home, but he only knows one person. He only has a connection with one person. That person is taken out of the picture very early on. So whenever he's saying what the mission is, I don't care. And even the idea of him being the hero, you don't really see him do that much. He talks about protocol and how he has to always save the day, but he really doesn't much in this movie. You have him team up with these screw-ups who are not very funny. They're not terrible, but they don't really leave that big an impact on you. One character's whole setup, he's obsessed with this pen that comes out of the suit. Now, of course, that's actually a pretty funny joke. The fact that those suits have pens is very, very funny. And I remember thinking to myself, this is gonna be his whole identity, isn't it? He's obsessed that this thing has a pen that comes out of it. And yes, that is it. He's also a screw-up, but they're all screw-ups, so that's not really anything unique.
You were narrating again.
I was not. Just doing the mission log.
Again, I feel like that's the movie. Just doing the mission log. Nothing else. Not going beyond, just the bare minimum. The only character that was legit really getting laughs out of me was the cat. And I thought that was going to be the worst character in the movie, but he had the best lines and the best line delivery. He's kind of like an emotion animal that can talk. That's already a pretty funny idea. I mean, if you think of like these emotion animals, it can actually like be your therapist as well. That's pretty entertaining. But on top of that, he can do all sorts of weird little gizmos and gadgets that he does question them about, and he has good responses back. It's very, very funny. He's by far the best part of the movie. And Chris Evans does a good job impersonating Tim Allen as Buzz Lightyear. I listen to him and I say, okay, this sounds like this is the Buzz Lightyear character, and that he's obsessed with protocol and he's always ready for action. He narrates, sometimes too much. There's 1 or 2 moments where they try to quote the original Toy Story. Maybe more than 1 or 2 moments, and it gets old really fast.
Buzz Lightyear to Star Command. Come in, Star Command. Why don't they answer?
That's the thing he used to say. They were that faithful with the rest of the story, maybe this be really good. But there's a handful of scenes that work just enough. There's one scene where a character has to jump from one ship to another without a rocket pack or anything, and she's terrified of space. And they do it in a very suspenseful way, and you are kind of holding your breath at this moment. So there are moments that are working, but when you actually get to the story and what it's about and the lesson they're trying to hammer in, I really think this started out as a different script. This really doesn't feel like what Buzz Lightyear is. I think someone had a sci-fi story that was about time travel and trying to get off of this planet, and somebody said, well, you know, we have a space character, Buzz Lightyear. Just throw his name on there, change this character's name to Zurg, we'll be totally fine. But I don't feel like I'm getting the most out of this idea. This film just didn't feel creative. It felt like it was taking other elements that exist, and rather than expand on them or explore them or make them better, it just kind of puts them in there, lets them do their thing, and nothing more. The action is very standard and the lines are very standard. There's not that much comedy in this or not many jokes that work.
To infinity.
Are you trying to get me to pull your finger?
Don't fall for it. No, not like that.
The jokes aren't all that bad, but they're not all that good either. At the very end of this movie, I saw an early show and there were a couple families there, and the mother said, you know, did you like it? And the kid went, yeah. There you go, that about sums it up. Kids will probably like it okay, it'll keep them quiet for a bit. I don't think they're gonna love it. And for a kid not to love Buzz Lightyear, a space ranger who goes into space with other space rangers and fights in the stars, something is wrong. They should be cheering at the end of this, wanting to see more, and instead they're struggling to say they enjoyed it. With that said, I do think there's gonna be people that like this film fine. I think the emotional moments hit satisfactory enough. I can see people getting into these kind of space stations and spaceships that I've seen a million times. I feel like they're hand-me-down Star Wars, but There's a lot of people that like hand-me-down Star Wars. There's a lot of people that like kind of these jungle/Mars-ish planets. They like feeling like they're in this world, and even if the lines are very stock, they kind of enjoy that too. So I do get it, and I think that audience is out there, and I do think for the first 2/3 of this movie, you're gonna get what the trailer was promising. It's gonna deliver. I was actually gonna give this maybe 3 out of 4, but as soon as we got to that last third, man, and the choices made with Zurg and his plan that, again, is really not given enough time. It actually reminded me of the end of Lost in Space, that movie, if you remember that. It's a very similar plot at the end, and it's handled in a very similar way that just doesn't quite feel emotional or feel big or epic, and I feel like Lightyear should be epic. For me, I think it's a missed opportunity. So let's give it 2 out of 4 reverse sandwiches. With that said, what did you think? Am I totally wrong on this? Do you feel like it really delivered on what you were looking for with this movie and it was emotional and you love what they did with Zurg? You thought it was brilliant and it somehow totally ties into Toy Story? Did you think it was awful? Did you think it had no redeeming qualities at all? Did you think it should have been like the cartoon or at the very least like Toy Story and bring to us what that idea was promising? Or do you think it's somewhere in between? Do you think some parts worked, some parts didn't, but you're glad you saw it and it was kind of nostalgic seeing good old Buzz Lightyear on the big screen again? Let me know your thoughts and I'll see you next time. Take care.